All right, everyone. So we have the next part in Totally Knob Mark's 100% blind Naruto review. This one is going to be covering the Chuunin Exams, which, in my opinion, is without a doubt still to this day one of the best arcs in the entire Naruto series. And yes, I'm including Boruto in that. The Chuunin Exams for me, just from beginning to end, absolutely fantastic. Not only do you have the story regarding the Genin, but you also have the side story involving Orochimaru and everything that's going on with some of the adults in the Leaf Village, you know, the Jonin, the Hokage, all realizing that there's something else going on here, and you're seeing that entire story unfold, and it all ends just beautifully with, you know, the fight between Gaara and Naruto and Sasuke in the in the forest surrounding the Leaf Village. Not to mention the Chuunin Exams themselves. In my opinion, one of the best parts in the entire story, and I feel like this is severely underrated, is actually the first exam that takes place, the test, where the entire point of the story is to see just how well they can gather intelligence without being noticed. And I just thought that Kishimoto, the way he wrote it, was just absolutely brilliant. And I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that enough, and I can't wait to see his thoughts on the Chuunin Exams, and I really hope he maybe brings some attention to that part in particular. So let's go ahead and watch this video. And as always, guys, before we do, if you want to support the channel, remember, leave a like, share this video, subscribe if you haven't, make sure to hit the bell to be notified whenever I post a new video, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I don't know why I blanked out on that, sorry. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and remember to check the description for links to this video as well as his channel. As always, make sure you head on over there, subscribe to his channel, watch his content. He makes fantastic videos, and let's go ahead and watch this one.
This video is brought to you by Manscaped.com. In the first part of this series, I pointed out some issues I had with the material, from pacing to some short instances where it felt like it lacked a focused direction. That was before it unequivocally won me over through the level of care and passion Kishimoto clearly demonstrated for the character of Naruto and the wider world he inhabits. From that point on, I knew this story had something to it, something I didn't expect to see. And going into this second arc, I was optimistic but concerned that it wouldn't live up to the climax of the previous installment, that I had seen the very best Kishimoto had to offer, and that now it would either be more of the same or experience a slight decline. Little did I know I was about to read an arc that would exceed any and every expectation I've had for this series. So far, Naruto seems to be full of surprises.
Okay, so yeah, sorry, just let me mute this part for a second. Okay, music's over. I'm switching the sound back on.
This arc was phenomenal, taking the vast majority of criticisms from my first video and turning them on their heads to make one of the most competently well-written arcs I've digested in a long time. Funny, thrilling, philosophical, and stunningly depicted, the Chuunin Exams are a monument to what Kishimoto can do, and I can't wait to discuss what I thought worked so damn well and one or two areas where I was a little unsure. Right from the get-go of this arc, it wastes no time at all establishing what the goals of our main trio will be and what the goal of the arc is. Where I felt the first arc's prologue was weighed down by its establishing of these characters, causing it to feel a little rough around the edges, this arc by comparison is a finely polished gem, utilizing all the pre-existing relationships we're familiar with to bolster the motivations of the characters in this story being told here. Naruto still wants to prove himself and to become the next Hokage, and now he has the chance to achieve the level of journeyman ninja, the same level as Iruka, his only father figure, and one that throughout this arc makes it clear that he believes that Naruto and Ko are not ready, and confronts Kakashi about this directly. It's cute, and it adds more drama going into the exams for us, and makes us ask the question, what will these exams be like? Sasuke's motivation is in comparison a lot more simple, or at least it is early on. He's sick of going on meaningless nothing missions that don't push his abilities. From the very beginning, his character has had one
and we do see that carried on throughout the rest of the story, where we see Sasuke continuously say that he's tired of doing these meaningless, you know, missions, and it leads into his, or it's look into his mindset where he's tired of, you know, being where he is now because he feels like he's still not at a level where he can take on Itachi. And then later on, Itachi being in the village and then Sasuke confronting him kind of cements that, and it's what ends up, of course, driving him to decide to leave with the Sound 4 to go to Orochimaru, because he feels like he just can't get what he needs here in the Leaf Village.
Express motivation to avenge his family. And this arc explores that facet of his character in much greater detail than the first did, as he expresses excitement over finally getting a chance to test his abilities against worthy adversaries. The results are some of the most shocking moments in this series so far. However, for me, the best part about these pre-exam build-ups has to be the indication we get of something meaningful finally happening to the character of Sakura. One of the biggest issues I personally found with her character was that, at least compared to the other characters, she didn't really have much depth. She felt less like a character and more like a useful mechanism in the story to create either tension between characters or to insert comedy. And while those attributes are important in a story, they don't make a great character in my mind. And so the choice to give her plenty of characterization in the lead up to the exams was exactly what I thought she needed. This feeling of being less than, being left out, and not having the belief in herself to press onward, to have the courage to fail. For me, this injection of doubt and conflict in her mind not only made sense given her company and what she has done or not done, but also because it gave her the chance to rally herself right before the application process ended. It helped me build a relationship with her as a character, which was exactly where I thought she was lacking. And now, as this trio marches confidently into an exam many see as far above their current level, we begin this story. And the characters we meet along the way are what make this as magical and intense a tale as it ultimately becomes. So, I guess it's time to start. The Chuunin Preliminary Exams. Within this story, there are 3 preliminary exams followed by the finals. Dozens and dozens of cell groups enter, and only a handful of participants will make it past these prelims. I've seen many tournament or exam arcs in my day, but none like this. There's an element to this that really makes it stand out, and I plan on addressing it as I go. So, let's start with the first test. The written exam. As soon as I gathered that the focus of this arc
my favorite part of the story,
and future prospects would face each other in what I assumed at the time would be hand-to-hand combat for the chances of promotion, I got extremely excited. I've made it clear in the past that some of my favorite storytelling devices or settings are these which follow a predetermined and easily understood format. Tournaments and exams all offer wonderful moments for characterization to lead the charge, on top of offering numerous wonderful chances to get to know new characters. And given that Kishimoto was a massive fan of Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball, I wasn't surprised in the slightest that, just like his idol, Kishimoto's second arc too featured a similar format focused on progressing to later rounds. However, what I wasn't anticipating was the creative approach he took. Numerous stories and series...
See, that's the thing that I love about what sometimes authors will do, where, you know, like if you look at it and you see, oh, okay, so this was obviously inspired by something else, like another work of fiction that you've seen, but they find a way to put their own spin to it. You know what I mean? Like what he just said, like what Kishimoto did here. Yeah, it's technically like it is technically a tournament, but it's his own, like it's his own unique look at a tournament. Like, for example, take the Chuunin exams themselves, right? The final stages. It's made clear to us at the beginning that it's not like any other tournament where, oh, the person who wins at the person who lasts all the way to the end is the one who ends up being promoted to Chuunin. That, no, they make it clear to you that's not how it works. Like, you could win the whole thing and still not be promoted, because the whole point of the exam is to test whether or not you have what it takes to be a Chuunin. You have the skill sets necessary to lead a group into a mission and be successful. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to fail, of course, because every mission has a has a chance at failure, is what I'm trying to say. But you're still someone who has the skills necessary, which is why Shikamaru was promoted, because he proved that he had the insane IQ of a leader, even though he was still really, really young. And yeah, he was like, he still showed some attributes that maybe could be worked at later on, excuse me, is what I meant to say. But that's basically the gist of it. Like, he had everything that people were looking for, at least the Leaf, in terms of being a Chuunin, even though he may not have, like, let's say the amount of chakra that you're expected, that you kind of expect from a Chuunin, or the amount of techniques, the amount of jutsus. Like, it's not necessary. Like, yeah, that can all be attained later on, but right now he has something that the others just don't.
rest on the laurels of the exam and tournament format, relying on it to carry the majority of the creative weight while they focus on characterization. There's nothing wrong with this approach, and many have used it effectively. Dragon Ball was one of the earliest adopters of this format, and in being such was quite straightforward and by the books in its approach. However, when I saw that Kishimoto wrote the first part of this exam to be a written paper test, I was completely taken off guard. In fact, I think I laughed out loud when faced with the concept initially. The idea that he would attempt to make entertaining something as mundane and visually boring as writing felt not only like narrative suicide, but also grabbed my attention the same way a train wreck might. Different series have made writing compelling in the past, like Death Note, but I couldn't see something like that working for a story like Naruto. A paper test just seemed like a bad idea, but I could not have been more wrong. Slowly, I started to understand not only was this going to work as an interesting section of the story, but it was, I think, a genius and unique utilization of this story's particular strengths. I'm specifically referring to its premise and themes. And once I caught on to the fact that they were being encouraged to cheat in order to pass, coupled with Naruto's innate inability to understand abstract concepts at the best of times, made not only for a compelling set of humorous and dramatic scenes, but present what I thought was one of the most brilliant challenges possible for a ninja-themed exam. I would never have thought of it, and something like this can only really work in a story like this about ninja training. It's so damn good. This exam's format follows in principle a very similar path to that of the old Tenkaichi Budokais from early Dragon Ball, wherein the preliminary matches before the main course set up the rivalries, establish the villains, and our other main characters that will participate later. While at this stage in the early 2000s that particular format was somewhat tired and done, this innovation on those principles in this new setting offered all the same benefits in a new way I've never experienced. In the last video, I never understood the love some people had for the character of Sakura, but with the introduction of these written exams, my opinion on her completely changed. In addition to helping establish new characters like Gaara, Hinata, and Lee, it also made me do a 180 on the character of Sakura with her intelligence on full display, proving to us that she's more intelligent than even Sasuke, carving out her own little niche in the group.
At least when it comes to, you know, knowing things,
examiner does
you know, book smarts.
He presents the class with a dilemma. Either take question 10, get it wrong and fail, or bail now and try again next year. Apart from this once again taking me off guard with its immediate high stakes, the philosophy that came from it not only once again felt appropriate for the themes and setting of this world, but again highlighted all the strengths of the Naruto character himself. The character that looked the worst during this written portion ended it with the most promise by proving himself in a different way. And so, taking a step back to appreciate everything this section achieved, these prelims, both right before and after, successfully highlighted the main antagonists, established the strengths and weaknesses of the main characters, and got me so damn excited for what was to come. I've read every Dragon Ball tournament, the Hunter exams of Hunter x Hunter, and the opening arcs of My Hero Academia, but none came even remotely close to the level of efficiency and creativity these chapters impressed me with. Major kudos to Kishimoto for this section. It's no small feat to tick all the boxes the way he's done here. Comfortably, it is my favorite part of the story so far. The Forest of Death. The concept surrounding this section was interesting to say the least. While less focused in the prior and slightly more conventional, the opportunities this Hunger Games-esque type format offered should be clear. There's a reason TV shows like Alice in Borderlands and...
You know, I gotta admit, like, as much as I love the Chuunin Exams, the Forest of Death was, like, outside of a few moments, weirdly enough, it was not my favorite part of the story. Yeah, I much preferred the, like, obviously I just said the written exam is my favorite part of the entire story, or at least the Chuunin Exams. But yeah, the Forest of Death, as much as I like it, it's not my favorite part of the entire Chuunin Exams arc. I don't know if you guys feel differently from me, but let me know in the comments, like, what did you think about the Forest of Death? Did you love it, or like, do you think that other parts of the Chuunin Exams were like stood out to you more than the Forest of Death?
Have become so popular in recent years. Placing contestants into a battle royale type setting, vying for their lives, has limitless possibilities for drama, comedy, and conflict, all within creative and seldom seen set pieces. And this challenge was no different. However, funnily enough, this was a challenge that really helped me come to grips with some of the more intense themes of the story. And at first, I didn't completely understand. In the prior exam, Ibiki, the lead examiner for the written test, said before that test that, and I quote, "From this point there will be no more fighting without the express permission of the examining officer, and even if that permission is granted, anything that endangers another applicant's life is strictly forbidden." It seemed straightforward enough, I thought, no killing each other. And as the remaining kids signed the document waiving this rule of no killing, my mind's immediate first thought was that this must be a bluff on behalf of the examiners to create a high-stakes simulation for their future young talents. I thought, okay, they each get one of two types of scroll and must retrieve the second type within the allotted time. I immediately thought an interesting concept would be that they all had the same color scroll and that those that managed to listen to the prior rules outlined by Ibiki would survive, while others would succumb to the pressure and take more drastic measures as time went on. Or something like that. There were countless directions for it to go, and it ended up going in a direction I never saw coming. In an effort to try and outthink the story, I overthought the story, while it ended up delivering one of the most straightforward blows that shook me to my very core. I should put this on a shirt at this point for how frequently I say it, but placing characters under pressure is a great mechanism to help build a relationship between your characters and the audience reading or watching. Everything that transpires in moments of high stress and high stakes feels authentic. It can make a bad character feel more evil and a good character feel more righteous. And in these high pressure scenarios, Kishimoto reveals that the person attacking the group of Sakura, Naruto, and Sasuke is a murderer. It's a chilling revelation that suddenly changes the entire vibe of the exam. Someone by the name of Orochimaru has stolen the face of an examinee, killing them in the process.
Identity theft is not a joke, Jim.
He's someone of tremendous danger and one far above the likes of Naruto and Sasuke in skill. Orochimaru is unlike any of the other characters I've encountered in this series. In the same way Zoro felt when he first tangled with Mihawk back on the Baratie, I felt like this encounter was equally as unexpected and demonstrated an enormous gap in ability between the characters. There's a tremendous amount of emphasis placed on Sasuke as he's the target of Orochimaru due to his lineage, but for me, the highlight of this section has to be Sakura. Once Orochimaru leaves his mark on Sasuke, reveals that he knows more than he's letting on concerning his past and places Sakura in a situation that actually made me feel so much sympathy for her, I was left a little stunned. Within a single chapter, Kishimoto flipped the script on this entire exam, downing both Naruto and Sasuke, thus placing a tremendous amount of pressure on Sakura. With no one to rely on, exhausted from lack of sleep, and terrified of everything around her for fear of what might happen to Sasuke and Naruto, she stays by their side as vigilant as she can be. It's an incredibly endearing set of scenes that demonstrate her strengths brilliantly. When the cards were down and she needed to protect her friends, she, without hesitation, was willing to place her life on the line for them, even when she knows that she's going to lose.
Okay, yeah.
What begins as a brilliant sequence of scenes dedicated to the struggle and tenacity of Sakura builds up into a fight for survival, incorporating a host of different characters, revealing their backgrounds and motivations, for better or worse. Lee remains to be one of the best boys and most likable characters in this series, fighting with his heart on his sleeve, God bless him. And I can't help but admit
Lee
that I see
is still one of the best characters in the series. And I'm still pissed off that Kishimoto didn't do much with him in the Shippuden part of the story.
little too much of myself in him at times, and while brave, his participation is one that stayed with me for the longest time during the Forest of Death sequence, drawing distinct and obvious parallels to the character of Naruto in his admiration for Sakura and his determination to improve and save those that need him. Sasuke in this sequence appears more vulnerable than ever before. There's a terrifying collection of scenes where something horrific is awoken within Sasuke, feeding off his desire for revenge. Apart from looking very impressive both in the anime and the manga, this section impressed upon
Nice
me
foreshadowing.
something I hadn't considered before. Another contrast Sasuke provides Naruto specifically in this series, where Naruto has had a demon sealed away inside him without his consent and chosen to fight against it to make it his own. Sasuke has been given one specifically because of his goals and actions. Naruto's goals fight to free him from his prison, and Sasuke's serve to become his undoing. Unlike Naruto, who wants to be the best he can be, Sasuke specifically is more and more over the course of this story becoming more and more consumed both figuratively and literally by his desire to kill his brother. And so, while this is just speculation, if he is to fulfill his role in the story, to contrast Naruto, it stands to reason that the closer Naruto gets to realizing his goal, Sasuke will become more and more consumed by his. It's a remarkably interesting dynamic, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. Gaara's characterization animation is terrifying, and in this scene, he single-handedly crushes my prediction that killing would be off limits. What a messed up exam. Overall, taking into consideration the final segment of these Force of Death Hunger Scroll tag games, the vibe I'm left with is one of hope that leaves me with a chill in my spine. We met and came to know so many wonderful characters in these challenges, saw each and every one of the main trio experience hardship only to rise to the occasion and overcome. Some more so than others, and it helped to establish in a rather mysterious fashion the most intimidating villain of the series. Continuing the trend from the previous written exam, while this one was much longer, it wasn't in any way less creative or action-packed in my opinion. These Chuunin Exams thus far have been an absolute treat and have given me everything I love from the traditional shonen format. Action, comedy, heart, and even tenderness through Iruka at the end as he welcomes his adoptive kid brother into his own leagues of journeyman ninjas. There's a palpable sense of love between these two characters and a wonderful sense of progression to boot. I loved this section, and overall with this Force of Death sequence, what an adventure. As a quick aside, something I want to keep my eye on is the examiner Anko that encountered Orochimaru and got his sign on her neck. She seems to have gone through the same metamorphosis as Sasuke, so let's see how this progresses with her down the line. Manscaped is taking off.
Yeah, they don't really do anything with that.
Their new out-of-this-world experience with the Performance Package 4.0 is now available not just in the USA, but also now Canada, the UK, across Europe, Australia, South Africa, and even Singapore. Wherever you are, the right tools for your family jewels are now available. This package comes with a bunch of handy tools for your own package, and first scheduled for liftoff is the new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. You've heard me talk about its skin-safe blades and waterproof build quality, but did you know it also has a built-in LED spotlight to help you navigate the treacherous black hole of Uranus? And that's not all. The bundle now includes their Weed Whacker nose and ear trimmer. This baby packs a whopping 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360 dual blade system, whatever that means, ready to rocket up the dark side of your hole for a pristine trim. You definitely can't forget the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver either. Gotta help your little planet stay nice and fresh as you continue on your adventures. And those adventures can last a lifetime if you enroll in their peak hygiene plan, replenishing your favorite products with direct delivery straight to your door. So if you're ready to abort hairy balls and Buzz Lightyear that Woody with Manscaped, head over to manscaped.com and use coupon code NOTMARK20 to get 20% off, free shipping, and 2 free gifts. Your balls will thank you.
サスケ、本当はお前、ナルトカードゲームを集めてるだろう。ポケットからはみ出してるぞ。新たなしのぎが続々参戦。ナルトカードゲーム。
Let's get ready to rumble!
Jesus.
This changes everything I felt about the story of Naruto, and took what was, I thought, a more kid-friendly world and plunged it into a much more dark, screwed up, and politically driven universe, which isn't a bad thing at all. If anything, this creates a nice contrast with the plucky and upbeat persona of Naruto himself. However, it does bring to my attention a few things worth mentioning. Having children hunt and kill each other is kinda screwed up. Even if, for the sake of argument, I were to remove my humanity from the equation and just look at this scenario through the eyes of a cold-blooded utilitarian, it's such a tremendous waste of future potential that could make something of themselves and serve their respective villages one day. I mean, I made the joke earlier about this Force of Death sequence being like the Hunger Games, but at least in that book series, people were selected for that, with only one person who volunteered to be the standout of the games themselves. There's a tragic nature to these events that paint shinobi as tools of destruction, conflict, and nothing more. Pawns for political gain. In my previous video, I didn't touch on it very much, but the relationship between Haku and Zabuza is very much...
Okay, so he's gonna talk about it in this video.
Haku viewed himself as a weapon to be used for the betterment of the only person who cared for him, and Zabuza too felt that way as a ninja, broadly speaking. It's tragic, it's horrific, and to hear the Hokage of all people speak so frankly about what they are fighting for, while interesting, is really unsettling in a lot of ways. Effectively speaking confidently and candidly to the remaining successful and talented contestants about how disposable they are. In this world, events like the Force of Death, where they weed out the weaker ones, is normal, adding a much more sinister tone to the likes of Anko, who stated that she wanted to cut the numbers down by half, at least at the very beginning. And as we have that horrific taste in our mouths concerning the lack of humanity, it's time for the tournament to further whittle down their numbers. There are some significantly important matches and thrilling spectacles to be certain, but the majority of them weren't too interesting from a narrative point of view, so I'll only be sharing my thoughts concerning what caught my attention. Sasuke versus Yoroi.
Okay, so
Short, I thought this fight
obviously I didn't look at the comments of this video before I watched it, you know, here with you guys, or I guess started watching it technically is more accurate, but I'm guessing there's probably going to be some people, or maybe there were some people in the previous videos comment section where they said, hey, you forgot to mention this or that, and he's saying like, no, didn't forget, just chose not to talk about it. Yeah, unfortunately there are some people who don't really pay attention to what's actually being said in the video. Now, I'm not saying I'm innocent of that. I'm sure, like I've done it in previous videos, but yeah, it does happen, unfortunately.
fight between Sasuke and Yoroi did everything it needed to with the little it was given. But what makes this section interesting isn't necessarily the fight itself, but the conversation that follows between Kakashi and Orochimaru. And just like the Hokage moments ago, his words, the arch-villain of the series so far, echo his exact sentiments concerning shinobi in a sense, that these people are expendable. And we're reminded of this towards the end of Yoroi's fight with Sasuke as he fights his curse, and once again in Shino vs Zaku, a scene so powerfully punctuated by Orochimaru's one-time lackey getting his arms literally destroyed from the inside out. It's horrific and made all the worse as we're given a fleeting glimpse into the world of this young man's history with Orochimaru seconds before. This story has gone from strength
Which goes to show you
when it comes
how
to its implementation of themes and pacing, and while melancholic, this scene is no different.
Which it just goes to show you how like how screwed up things are at this point, where you're seeing like people who had these like really terrible lives, and then all of a sudden someone comes along and pretty much takes advantage of it. Not like, you know, from their perspective they're seeing it as someone helping them, but we know from Orochimaru like how his personality is. Like he never really cared about them. Like you were just an experiment to them. Like he never cared about you personally, and it sucks because like again, like it gives you like a window into just how screwed up this world actually is, and how, you know, like you spend your time here in the Leaf Village, you know, you're seeing kids, you know, they're playing with each other, they get to grow up, they're eating good, most of them. I'm sure there are some in the Leaf Village, but for the most part, like outside there are still a lot of kids out there who like are still starving, they're living on the streets. And it's kind of funny how when, you know, you get to the later part of the story and you find out about the history of the creation of the Leaf Village, and then you find out that other shinobi pretty much copied the system that the Leaf Village started, and you realize it was all done because they wanted to create a place where kids wouldn't have to see their siblings, you know, die at such an early age. And but then you realize that there, like, it's still happening years, like decades after you've already started this. Like, it's still happening. It hasn't completely eradicated the problem. And one thing that I love about that is it shows you like things that, you know, like it shows you characters, or not things, characters like Madara and Sasuke, what they were saying, and especially Pain, or I guess Nagato, what their, you know, their philosophy is. Like, you understand why they came to these conclusions, because like they actually experience the outside world outside of the village. That's one thing that I think, you know, Naruto kind of lacked, which is that, and I'm talking about Naruto the character, not the series, but Naruto, like, he grew up in the village, he grew up in certain places, but he never went outside, he never experienced the actual world. You know, he never got to see all the places where, like, let's say it's not as what's the word I'm looking for, affluent, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. It's not as, or I guess I should say it's not as well off as the Leaf Village, where, you know, kids are growing up on the street, they're seeing all these horrible things happening around them. But Sasuke did get to see it because he was outside the village, and that's why he like it plays into what he says at the end of the series when he's facing against Naruto in the Valley of the End, where he's telling him that, you know, the whole system that's already in place, like, it needs to be overhauled because it's not perfect. Like, there's still people out there who like, who are still starving, who are not well off, who are living these terrible lives, and nothing's being done about them. That's why, like, it's a part of it, and like, it goes into why he believes that we need to start something new. Like, this system that's already in place is not working well. And but Naruto, like, obviously has the a different view. He wants to keep the current system but still work on it to try to better itself. But obviously, like, we look into the Boruto series, and it's as far as we know, it still hasn't changed. Like, it's still happening. And yeah, and that's just one thing that I always, you know, like, loved about the Naruto series and what Kishimoto does, where he, like, has people who are of the opposite opinion from the protagonist, and you're actually shown why they believe this. Like, it's not where, you know, you're told, like, this is what I believe, this is what I think, and you're never seen, like, you're never given the reason as to why they believe this. But here in the series, you actually do, because you're actually given their story. And also, just one thing about Zaku, like, when his arms, let me see if I see it.
Seconds before. This story has gone from strength to strength when it comes to its implementation of themes.
Where is it? Let me see if I can bring it up.
Lackey getting his arms literally.
Yeah, this was way more brutal in the manga. Like, his arms actually exploded. Like, he loses both of his arms. But in the anime, obviously they censor that because the anime, I guess they still had to abide by certain rules.
This scene is no different. Sakura versus Ino. I never spoke about Ino.
Yeah, this was
despite her being.
I think pretty much everyone can agree that this was probably, like, the least interesting match in the entire series. Yeah, this was not fun to watch at all. I mean, it was good because we got to look at the like, we got a look into these characters and their mindsets and their backstories, the relationship. But the fight itself was just not interesting.
Directly involved in a number of scenarios, but Ino is another character.
I mean, it was
who gets some
okay,
shine in
but
exposition here and a chance to show her true colors. From a foundational perspective, I enjoy her popular girl demeanor and character.
You know what? I'll tell you this: it's better than the Choji fight.
Character design. But just like Sakura in the last arc, she suffers from issues stemming from Sasuke being a massive driving force in her life. However, and this is a big however, she does offer Sakura a means to further distance herself from this mindset. Again, I want to reiterate that really liking a boy or someone in a story isn't a sin or even a bad thing necessarily. But what's made me like Sakura all the more lately has been her ability to fight against her demons, and in the case of her defense of Sasuke, her insecurities. Fighting tooth and nail to protect those she cared for, all the while earning the respect of those around her. This was a brilliant moment from the Forest of Death, and it's one of the reasons why I found this fight against Ino to be so incredibly frustrating. Not because it's bad, far from it, it's amazing. There's a touching story filled with impactful gestures, symbolism, and touching character writing. However, there's also this.
今日の授業は生け花です。
Now look, I understand that in some cases, particularly for the purposes of deception and espionage, leaning into some more feminine qualities or embracing said qualities is important for young female ninja prospects to be able to wield. That makes sense as a concept, but Kishimoto, I found, whenever he tries to write a female character like a female character, he does so in a fashion that convinces me he's never seen or spoken to a woman ever in his life. There are some brilliant visual metaphors.
Well, that's technically not true because Kishimoto's married, so. And yeah, here's the thing, like, to this aspect, or to this point that he just raised, I will say that I think this is one thing that a lot of people did bring up, that Kishimoto, at least back then, I think personally he's gotten a lot better at it now, but back then he did have trouble, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he himself even kind of admitted this, that he had trouble writing female characters, and this was something that I do kind of wish he would have kind of expanded on, because what he says right here, or what he's doing in the story, where he says that, like women using, certain like skill sets that they have that men don't, to in order to use it for deception and infiltration does make sense. Because in case you don't know this, I highly recommend you look into history, like actual our own real life history. There are many cases where women have done that in real life. Like there were women who, all the way back during, you could say, the Victorian age, where they would actually use their charms to manipulate the men around them into basically doing what they want. Seriously, I like, guys, if you ever have a chance, look into the history of our world. Trust me, it's way more interesting than you think. And I know some people might look at that and say, "Oh, history, it's boring." No, trust me. Like you would be surprised how many things you would find fascinating about history. And you once you look at it, you will look at the series, the works of fiction that you know digest every day. You'll look at it differently, because you'll realize, oh, this author must have gotten it from this. Because a lot of authors are like, their stories are inspired by real life events. So I seriously, if you ever have a chance, I highly recommend you do it. And that was one thing that Kishimoto did here, or introduced in the story, that I do kind of wish he would have expanded on. And weirdly enough, I think there's an anime only filler in Naruto where they actually did kind of do that. And it's been a while since I've seen it, but the entire story is, there's a woman who infiltrates the Leaf Village, and her whole, or no, she wasn't infiltrating the Leaf Village, but she basically uses her charms to try to get close to Kakashi, if I remember correctly. And that was one example of, like women sort of using their, skills in order to infiltrate and deceive the enemy, that I do kind of wish we would have seen more of. And not just women, I kind of wish we would have seen more of that, even from guys, but just that that the art of just using deception to infiltrate enemy territory, I've just always found that interesting. And it doesn't even have to be through, like using a person's charms, but just any way to like infiltrate enemy territory, to gather intelligence and then getting out of there. I always just found that really interesting. It's one of the reasons why, for me personally, like stealth games have always been like one of my favorites, because I've always loved that art, like that thing where you have to like be sneaky, you have to make sure you don't get caught by the enemy, you have to take out enemies like as quietly as possible. I've always loved that. I've always loved those kinds of games, which is why I love the Metal Gear Solid games, because it actually incorporates that into the gameplay. And I also love it when we see it in stories. Anyway, to continue.
Demonstrating Sakura's flowering personality and her independence, like when she takes off her headband, emblematic of her taking off the security blanket her one-time friend Ino gave her. And that's brilliant. But throughout this chapter, instead of these two having a meaningful rivalry over something philosophically profound or substantial like the other fights, I'm constantly reminded that this is a rivalry over Sasuke's affection. However, looking past that, there's, as I said, so much to like about this fight. From its strategic action set pieces all the way to its terrific use of the way Kishimoto has depicted Sakura since the beginning, with her inner Sakura overriding Ino's control power. It's such a brilliant and creative idea. And really, while female character writing isn't his strong suit, creative implementation of these techniques certainly is, and I'm delighted this fight got some of that too. I'm a little bummed that it ended in a tie, but at the end of the day, it's still the best fight so far. And I think what I like about this section of the
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
On the secondary and supporting characters. While Naruto does pick up the victory in his bout later on, there's not a tremendous amount that happens apart from Hinata versus Neji. To be perfectly honest, of
okay,
all the
this
fights in
is a fight that I do really like.
Balls to the wall fight to end all fights in this section in a second. This fight first between Hinata and her
We know
cousin
which
Neji
fight he's talking about.
took me off guard and turned out to be incredible. I had no idea the quiet girl and this person I didn't know the name of before would have one of the best fights of the tournament. There's a palpable resentment with heaps of political undertones broiling right beneath the surface as Neji expresses her resentment towards Hinata's family branch, all the while Hinata tries to overcome her shortcomings shortcomings and timid nature to give Neji a far more competitive bout than anyone ever expected from her. She's been one of the only classmates of Naruto to actually show him some admiration and respect when it's due, and I like how this fight has echoes of what made Naruto special because of that. She's able to recognize what makes him strong, and all throughout this arc, she's sort of been the only characters to believe in or care for him. And during this fight, the dominoes fall, and I come to realize why. She wants that sort of self-belief for herself. It's easily one of the best fights, and Kishimoto does a terrific job of characterizing Hinata as someone of interest. Funnily and ironically enough, in writing Hinata, Kishimoto managed to write a more compelling female character than the likes of perhaps Sakura and certainly Ino.
Mm-hmm. Still, the best fight in the series.
Gaara versus Rock Lee. Before going into this fight, without knowing the source of these names, I had heard through the grapevine that Gaara versus Rock Lee was something special. I wasn't even 100% sure of which anime it came from, but this be a good one. It was mentioned during the Forest of Death exam that Gaara's sand abilities happen without him needing to think, and this turns out to be the antithesis of Rock Lee, who had to work for every single thing he ever achieved. Unlike Gaara, he wasn't born with this innate ability to perform sand manipulation as if he were a master of Ultra Instinct, but the initial back and forth between these two fighters plays to the advantages this setup provides too. Gaara is set up to be this immovable object, this unbeatable foe, one that has never even had an attack land on him. And so early on, we not only see what Gaara versus Rock Lee is, but also the battling between two different approaches to work. Natural born talent and innate ability versus hard work for earned power. A tale as old as time, certainly, and it's performed to tremendous effect here. A genius versus a genius of hard work. There's short glimpses we get to see into Lee's early life that paint a very similar picture to that of Naruto's upbringing. Surrounded by naysayers yelling at him to quit, reprimanding him for his failings, and insulting him for his lack of natural ability. When his master Guy walked up to him and called him a genius of hard work, I actually teared up a little bit. It's such a moving sentiment that really captures the essence of this character. And in this fight, Rock Lee just goes full-blown fucking Kaioken. This is the coolest shit ever. I haven't spoken about this much as of yet, but the choreography and scope of this particular fight is unlike anything I've seen from this series to date. There are some absolutely breathtaking layouts, and the philosophical message brimming with hope, promise, and determination is enough to win my affections many, many times over. And all of this is turned up to 11 in the anime's adaptation. Thankfully, my team gave me specific episodes they deemed as must-watch episodes before I recorded these reviews to get my full experience, and Gaara vs. Rock Lee is remarkably well produced in the anime, particularly
Very
for the
well
early 2000s
done.
with its use of CG backgrounds. If you happen to have seen my Attack on Titan video, AJ wrote some cool sections about one of the earliest usages of 3D backgrounds in conjunction with 2D animation to pull off some insane sequences that inspired the iconic
That's from the new Neon Genesis movie.
scene in that show. And it was this particular episode that kicked things off. Directed by Toshiyuki Tsuru, who I've been told is a legendary name in this franchise, this episode switches things up by swapping to 3D backgrounds, which, although haven't aged well in places, did allow for some spectacularly ambitious sequences from the likes of iconic animator Norio Matsumoto. It's all so dynamic, and the fact that this was possible on a TV schedule.
Yeah, and
back
his the guy he just mentioned, like his episodes are some of the best animated ones in the entire series.
early 2000s is astonishing. Turns out that it was Matsumoto who also animated the amazing sequences in the Forest of Death episode I was told to watch, and that was insane. I've been absolutely loving the choreography in the manga, so to see these legendary staff members elevate even further the material was really cool. AJ's got me set up with all the animation highlights for the future, so I'm definitely excited to see more here. For now, back to the manga. As wonderful as Gaara is a dancing partner in this instance to bring out the best of Lee, it's Lee's mentor Guy that ends up carrying the bulk of this bout's emotional weight along with his lovable, precious protege. You can see in his eyes that what Lee represents and is fighting for matters greatly to him. That he not only can look on and enjoy the show, but is very much inspired by this young kid too. It's an outstandingly brilliant fight, easily the best I've seen so far in the series, and Kishimoto managed to achieve this level of personal, emotional involvement from me without using
Dude, I gotta be honest, like when I first saw this, I'm not gonna lie, I nearly teared up when I saw this, especially later on when it's revealed that he's unconscious. He's still standing up, still willing to go because that's how much like he wants to prove to everyone around him that he's not useless. And it just, I honestly don't know how anyone can see this and not get emotional. I honestly don't think that's possible.
Any of his main characters. Utterly spectacular stuff.
なんだそのでっかいカエルってばお前一体何者だ
This section of the story is largely set up with it primarily providing us with the chance to catch up with the plot lines concerning Orochimaru's plan to steal away Sasuke, the history of the 4th Hokage, and the various finalists preparing in their own ways for their respective upcoming final bouts in the Chuunin Exams. This is all fun and enjoyable, but it's rather standard. However, while reading through this section, I did find something worth perhaps remarking upon. A large portion of this waiting phase is spent following Naruto's preparation to fight in these final matches. In these, he trains with a flamboyant mentor called Jiraiya who can summon a giant frog. It's humorous at times despite the fan service, however what's interesting about this is what it made me notice. I've mentioned this before, but Akira Toriyama's Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball were massive influences on Kishimoto and Naruto by extension, and nowhere was this more obvious to me than with this specific scene. Years back, I wrote a series of videos wherein I attempted to break down how I understood certain characters in the Dragon Ball series worked. What made the likes of Vegeta, Piccolo, Frieza, and many others
The good
tick
old
in a sense.
days.
And in them, I pointed out that one of the most simple and effective narrative mechanics Toriyama implemented was through the character of Son Gohan, highlighted perfectly in this scene. With Gohan's hidden reserves of strength only brought forth through danger, and it looks as though in his admiration of Dragon Ball he created in Naruto a character with the determination of Goku but with the mechanics of Son Gohan. Couple that with his color scheme, Toad Hermit Mentor, and it's not hard to see the similarities with that of Akira Toriyama's early material. But where this scene and Naruto himself deviates as a character comes moments after he's thrown. In the case of Gohan, his inner power was ill-defined and left to occupy our minds as pure speculation. It never came from anywhere other than him. Ironically, he has more of a claim to a chosen one type power than Naruto does in this way. In Naruto's case, Kishimoto decided to depict a scene inside Naruto's mind, where he confronts his literal inner demon directly. I thought this was a really cool idea and one I didn't think would happen. It's brief, but even so, it's full of character. Naruto doing what he does best when he's caught off guard, act tough, resulting in the intimidating beast trapped within to acquiesce and lend Naruto the necessary chakra to save his own and by extension the Fox Spirit's life. It's definitely one of the most interesting developments for the Naruto character thus far, and I was extremely excited to see where this one went.
こいつに個人的な恨みでもあんのかそんなものはないただ俺が殺しておきたいから殺すだけだ
I thought the purpose of this scene was brilliant. Isolating what makes Gaara tick as a person, and just like I pointed out with the likes of Haku in the first arc, Naruto seems to have a great emotional maturity for these particular kinds of lost toy characters, empathizing with their situation, even in the case of Gaara where he's saying some of the most reprehensible stuff, mirroring the main character, offering an example of him in an alternate world through the likes of a more unfortunate character that didn't have positive figures in his life like Naruto did, really serves to highlight what makes him wonderful. I mentioned that Naruto is a character that's designed to sort of look better when he's punching up, fighting on the back foot like Gohan was, effectively whenever an opportunity presents itself to show courage. And this is a character that, due to Naruto's intimate understanding of what makes him tick, knows the lengths of how far he's willing to go. Naruto's been a character that shows a brash bravado in practically every encounter he's participated in, even up against the nine-tailed fox spirit. The reason he feels comfortable in doing so is for a myriad of reasons, but one particularly stands out in this case. More often than not, he knows he's willing to push himself farther than anyone because he needs to. But now he's met someone that's just as willing to do that, and suddenly, Naruto starts to shake.
Mhm.
Brilliant scene. Similar to Sasuke in this sense, this is a villain that's tailor-made to make Naruto look amazing. Placing him on a back foot we don't often see him perform on, and I can't wait to see this fight now. Chuunin Final Exams. I'm going to be glancing over some of these fights in the same way the manga did. While there were story reasons for one of them being
Understandable.
entirely skipped over narratively, I really did feel like all the emphasis was on these two fights between Naruto and Neji and Sasuke and Gaara. Both were
Oh.
amazing for very different reasons, and I will be chatting about them in detail, but one
I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hoping he would focus on the Shikamaru and Tamaru fight, considering how it actually pays off later on in part 1.
fight I won't be covering that much of will be Shikamaru's. He'll say it himself, it's not what anyone came to see, but with that said, he had a decent showing for a chapter or two with some fun and creative action sequences.
But
I
it's
really
one of the
liked his
best
shadow
ones. In my
speciality and
opinion, the
its
best one
implementation
in the
this fight
final
specifically.
exams.
It's super fun and he's super smart.
You're so smart, I'm gonna throw up. Hold on.
Jesus, hold on.
絶対勝つ
Naruto versus Neji. The climax of this fight shows firsthand to Neji, someone that believes someone's fate is determined at birth, that you can change your fate. All of Naruto's life, he was told that he would be nothing special. That even if he did have potential, he was a cursed child burdened with a fox spirit. And right now, in this fight, Naruto uses this as a strength. I loved watching this fight, and honestly, it might be the best Naruto fight thus far that I've seen. Kishimoto has done a terrific job of
Again, I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, but okay.
providing this young kid with a host of interesting adversaries to fight and bring out the very best in him. I've mentioned already why Gaara is a powerful foil to Naruto, as he shares a similar background but went a different direction in his life. But Neji, on the other hand, instead of having a similar upbringing, channels a philosophy that runs counter to Naruto's. Obsessed with and convinced that everyone's fate is predetermined, that they are all hamsters running on wheels against a tide that none of them could possibly overcome or overturn. The exact opposite of Naruto's mindset. And showing this orphan child channel everything in his power to grab the victory was powerfully cathartic, with him effectively using all of his weak points and insecurities as strengths against his opponent. And by the way, when Naruto erupts from the floor with that massive uppercut to take out the pompous Neji, I actually punched my fist to the sky and shouted, "Yes!" It's a brilliant fight, and for the first time, this one-time loner receives the adulation of his peers. Once mocked for who he was, the determination he's shown in the face of adversity has delivered him the stage that he deserves. A victor's welcome. The message of this fight being, believing in possibilities can give you the power to change your destiny. What an empowering and uplifting philosophy. Sasuke versus Gaara. Something I've noticed in this manga, particularly this week after I had to read like 9 volumes of them, is that there aren't really that many full-page spreads. Kishimoto's paneling doesn't feel cluttered, but he doesn't
We're,
often go all out
This video is nearly an hour long, Jesus.
with a full-page spread too often, and that can be
Yeah, you guys, just to let you know, you might want to get used to seeing like a string of 40 to an hour, 42 hour long videos, because I took a look at the playlist, and a lot of these videos are either like 26 minutes to over 30 minutes long. I think one of them, if I remember correctly, was at least 40 minutes. So yeah, you're going to be seeing some long videos from me for the foreseeable future.
be a strength, as seen in this fight here. He really goes out to make this feel like the spectacle it deserves to be. Ever since the 1-month training began, Sasuke has had a question mark hanging over his head. After what he went through in the Forest of Death and the qualifiers immediately thereafter, when he eventually shows up for this final showdown with Gaara, we learn that he's been training with Kakashi, and the way the two of them are revealed on the page has a terrific sense of occasion thanks to Kishimoto's framing. The fight, in addition to that, gets a tremendous amount of shine too, and for all intents and purposes, this is Sasuke's highlight reel, with the very creepiest from Gaara making itself known to us as he slowly starts to lose his mind. I don't think it's an understatement to say that this is an incredibly
You know, I still find it funny that here,
this is Sasuke's highlight reel, with the very creepiest
yeah,
from
here,
Gaara making itself known to us as he slowly starts to lose his mind.
yeah, we see. Oh boy, this is not a good image.
Self known to us as he slowly
See if I
starts to
can-
lose his mind.
All right, whatever. Like here we see Sasuke being absolutely afraid of him, and then later on, like he's not afraid of him at all. In fact, he can control them no problem. It's kind of funny, like going back and seeing certain things, knowing where the story ends up.
Mind. I don't think it's an understatement to say that this is an incredibly important fight, and just as Sasuke whips out what looks like to be his big finishing move, the arc takes a turn for the worst. This arc has been utterly spectacular and has shown me tons of stuff both to analyze and keep in mind moving forward. There's a massive political upswing in this upcoming material, I feel, and a war most likely. It's going to be amazing, and if you don't want to miss my first impressions and review of that material, don't forget to subscribe. But until then, I've been Totally Not Mark. I'll see you all next week, and thank you so much for watching.
Okay, so that's the video. Anyway, guys, yeah, I'm gonna end this real quick because, like I said, this video is nearly an hour long, so I don't want to keep you here any more than you probably even want to be. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please remember to leave a like, share this video, subscribe if you haven't, make sure to click on the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, as well as any recommendations you have or videos that you want me to react to. Just let me know about them in the comments and I'll get to them. But just to let you know, it's gonna take a while to get to whatever videos that you recommend, because like I said, I'm gonna go through all of the videos that he made on Naruto, and there's a lot of them, so it's gonna take a bit before I get to the videos that you recommend. So just to let you guys know that, and I hope I'll see you for the next one. Oh, and sorry, before I forget, make sure to check the description of this video for links to this video in particular and Totally Not Mark's channel, so you can head on over there, subscribe, and show him some support. With that being said, guys, again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.